Hey, Nickie Brown here. No matter where you are and no matter what part of the world you're in, I hope that you're having a good day. So, I wanted to bring up a sensitive topic that could be triggering to some people, and it's about mothers and their sons, right? Some women experience it and some women don't. It especially hits home for those single mothers who raise their boys alone. I've been saying for years, a woman cannot teach her son how to be a man because she's never been one. She doesn't know anything about being a man, right? She can only teach him to the best of her ability from her perspective of how she think a man should be and raise him accordingly. um, I know that for myself personally, I did my best to have male mentors around my child. I kept him in activities like chess and basketball, Boy Scouts. Um, I sent him on trips, although I wasn't always able to go because as a single mother, it's not always in the budget. But I would do my best to send him places. I wish I had been able to go in a lot of those situations, but again, it wasn't always in the budget for me. But what happens is when there's a void, right? These young men grow up with a void, knowingly or unknowingly, right? And whether they build a relationship with their father or not, there's still a void there because there's a whole gap of time that they missed out on certain fundamentals. Even if the grandfather was there, even if the uncle was there, it's still not that biological parent. And it makes people feel like, oh, why didn't this person love me? Why didn't this person want to be around? They'll even blame, especially the mother. The mother a lot of times will get the brunt of the emotion. She becomes the scapegoat. She gets blamed for it. And then some sons will lash out on their mothers and again blame her or try to shame her or make her feel guilty when she may have done the best that she could, given the circumstances that she was under, based on how she was raised, based on the knowledge that she had, especially she was a young mother. When I say young, I had my son at 18, so that was young, right? Even early 20s, that's still young. Although you may learn a little bit more if you're 22 as opposed to when you were 18, that's still very young. And so again, when things don't go right in life, again, this adult's child will now blame this single parent who, again, may have done the best that they could. Now, some, feel like, oh, well, maybe the mom put a boyfriend or a husband before them. Or maybe they saw their mom be promiscuous. Or maybe they saw their mom doing drugs. Or maybe they saw their mom mismanage money. Whatever it is, this child is 9 times out of 10 holding on to that. And I'm not saying that any of those things apply to me. I'm just giving scenarios of what possibly could happen, what a child could see growing up, right? As it pertains to their mother. And so, again, they hold on to these things. 9 times out of 10, they don't get help because seeking some type of counseling or psychotherapy makes people think that something's wrong with them when that's not the case at all. If you have a headache, you take an aspirin, ibuprofen, Naproxen, whatever it is that you take, it doesn't matter. That's beside the point. So don't get stuck on that. Like people like, well, I done did. Who cares? That's not what the point I'm trying to make. If you're sick, you take some type of cold medicine. If you have pain, you take some type of pain medicine, right? Or you lay down, take a nap, drink some water, whatever it is that you do. But you don't just ignore it 9 times out of 10. You do something to address it, right? So if you had mental pain, emotional pain, verbal, mental, physical, financial abuse, whatever it is that you had growing up, you have to have those issues addressed. Now, personally, you know, years ago, I apologized to my child, right? And I explained to him that I did the best that I could do, given the situation or circumstances I was raised under. I thought I was doing what I was supposed to do because that's basically what was done to me. Now, there were some things that I learned along the way, and when I knew better, I did better. But again, it's still not good enough to someone who wants to hold on to what they experienced growing up. But at a certain time as an adult, it's now your responsibility. You have to be accountable and responsible. You cannot continue to blame the parent and think that they're supposed to be accountable and responsible, or to try to blame, shame, make them feel guilty. And some parents do. And they try to make up for it. And they try to make up for it with the grandchildren. But again, if you have someone who's in a healed place, such as myself, I'm not going to take that blame. I'm not going to feel guilty. I'm not going to take on that responsibility. And I'm not going to try to rectify what happened with my grandchild. That doesn't make logical sense, right? Because I've had to heal from my own childhood trauma. I've provided my child with tools. I've provided my child with resources. But he's now, a 30-year-old man, right? So it's now up to him to do his own healing, to work past. He tries to say, oh, well, you're just not doing this and you're not doing that. And my friend's parents, mind you, most of his friends' parents are married, right? So you cannot compare a married couple to a single mother. There's no comparison. And yes, some single mothers go on to do great things. They even become millionaires or six-figure earners, right? And I've done my best to achieve those goals as well. But sometimes circumstances don't line up at that moment in time, right? That doesn't mean you stop. That means you continue to move forward. However, if you have someone that has resentment and animosity and they won't even help you to achieve those goals, they keep empty promises, right? And not that anybody has to help you or do anything for you, right? I know I would do my best not to say I'll do something. I'll say maybe, or I'll think about it, or we'll see. But you want to know, in a child's mind, they take it as, yes, you're going to be able to make that happen, right? But I was very intentional about that because I know that was a disappointment for me as a child growing up, to be told that something was going to happen and then it didn't happen. And then it's like the person will try to throw it up in your face. Yeah, well, I don't have this and I can't do this. And this, so I did my best not to do that to my child. But again, in his mind, I'm sure it's different, right? I was very intentional. I was very intentional about a lot of things. I was very intentional to say I love you and to give him hugs and to show him affection. And as an Aquarius, we're not very affectionate at all, right? We sometimes have to force ourselves to be affectionate. But I learned to do that because I know that that was important for my child. Because I know that my mom stopped doing it at a certain age. And I was very young. And I missed out on that opportunity to receive that love. But I don't blame her. Again, she had her own issues that she had going on. And she has to work through those things. And she has to get her own help, which she probably will never do. And so at a point in time, you have to learn how to love people from afar, right? But when you do your best to raise someone, and then that person then turns out to be dishonest, and they try to be dishonest to you about you, something's wrong, right? And again, when they try to make you feel guilty or ashamed because of how they turned out, instead of taking accountability and responsibility, you can't take that on, right? I have another friend who, she had 2 boys, right? And they're both in that same mental space of blaming her for how their life turned out. blaming her for being drug addicts. Are you kidding me? That's a personal choice, right? She didn't do drugs. So how do you blame your mom that you decided to do drugs? That doesn't make logical sense. So anyway, this phone is going to die. And I just wanted to share that with those who may be going through the same thing, because that's always what I'm trying to do, is help people. And some of the tools that you can utilize is by writing some of these things down. What are your thoughts? What are you feeling? And how can you change the story so that it does not affect you in such a negative way going forward? Right? And of course, I always recommend, if you have certain goals in life, seek a life coach to help you with those goals. They may be able to help you with some of your trauma, but if it's really intense trauma, if it was really abusive, like sexual abuse, or really, really, really traumatic for you, a lot of times you need to see a psychotherapist. So there's different levels to counseling. You have your licensed clinical social workers, psychiatrists, which basically they're going to give you medicines like Wellbutrin or something, which is like a temporary band-aid to numb. But you can become addicted to those things, so I don't recommend that. Again, I recommend someone like a psychotherapist who you can actually talk to, some type of counselor, or someone who's actually going to listen and give you tools to help you heal. As always, I love y'all, and I hope that this was helpful. Mwah.